The missioners looked to their faith for courage, and with it, they faced pirates, war, and isolation. China's social unrest was a constant threat to the missioners' safety as soldiers, pirates, and warlords fought for control.
Just a few lines to assure you that I am still alive and in good health after our 60-hour detention on board the respectable SSY Hoi by 20 bands of Chinese pirates. I was not alone, there being with me 7 sisters, 4 Chinese women, 2 children, and 2 Chow puppies. The Chinese were convinced that we were doomed to be shot. I think it only fair to say that the sisters came through the terrorizing ordeal remarkably well. Father William Fletcher, Kung Moon, Kwang Tung, December 13th, 1926.
Maryknoll missioners remained in China after Mao Zedong's Communist Army took control of the country. Some missioners were deported. Others were accused of being spies and imprisoned. One of them was Father Francis Ford, who was among the first Maryknollers assigned to China in 1918. He died in 1952, ill and exhausted, after serving 1 year in prison. James E. Walsh, another in the first mission group, was also branded a spy. After spending 7 years under house arrest, in 1958 he was sentenced to 20 years in prison. In 1970, without warning, he was released after serving 12 years of his sentence. It was a gesture by the Chinese government to improve political relations with the United States.
I never thought I would ever see the day of my release. I felt that I would not live long enough to complete my sentence of 20 years and that I would die in prison. I have no bitterness towards those who tried and condemned me. I could never feel anger with any Chinese.
In the 1940s and 50s, Maryknoll found new missions in the Philippines, Africa, and Latin America. When the political situation in countries such as Guatemala and El Salvador exploded in civil war, missioners sometimes found themselves in the midst of the conflict. Because they stood with the poor and oppressed, people who were often caught in the middle, the missioners were sometimes considered subversive. This put them in the same danger as the people they accompanied. Father Frank Garvey was ordained in 1943. For 30 years, his mission was in Guatemala. During most of that time, the country was torn by a violent civil war.
And I remember that one time I had to assist at the funeral of one of the priests of the neighboring province of Quiché, and I knew him before, and he was killed in cold blood right in his parish and so on, because a priest was a prominent figure. He was a threat to the powers that be. So they tried to get rid of him. And when I looked at the casket and saw the details, I looked and said, well, but for the grace of God, I would be there. You take your chances.
In 1974, Maryknoll formally accepted lay missioners to further their work with people in need. Early on, Maryknoll founder James A. Walsh envisioned a role for lay missioners.
Surely there will be generous souls, in numbers proportionate to the grace of God, who may not feel called to devote their entire lives to a religious work, but who would gladly spend a certain time, say 5 years or more. Father James A. Walsh.